morning and welcome to SimWorld Today, Friday edition. I'm Marsh, joined as we are every single Friday by Rick Blaze, fresh off his return trip from Oregon, where he saw the Oregon Ducks fail to clinch an upset over the Fighting Illini last night. Good morning, Rick. How are you?
Man, it was disappointing for the Ducks not to close that game out with a victory, but I feel really refreshed because my shoe game is a lot better coming from that Oregon trip for sure. Thank you, Nike Town. Appreciate it.
Hand up the old Nike store. Love to hear that. Well, we got plenty to get to, including Oregon and Illinois. There was quite a bit of action again on night 3 of the SimWorld U season, but where we're going to start is where the night started yesterday. Davidson hosting Kentucky Wildcats on Wildcats, and Davidson jumps out to an early lead, 11 points at the break, but University of Kentucky outscores them by 15 in the second half. They're now plus 32 in the second half of games. Kentucky wins 81-75, but the big question mark, Rick, coming out of this one is the rotations from head coach Mark Pope. Sits Glory Tate late in this one, sits down Adonis Knight and Trey Trust at points when they looked like they were really rolling. Your takeaways from Kentucky's win?
This is not the way you want to start your season. It's really interesting. Not only just the coaching decisions, but just Kentucky in general. You know, like of course they were the favorites coming into this game. And it does say something good about the ability to win games late, come back from deficits and things like that. But boy, are you cutting it close. Davidson had those guys on the ropes. But again, it also shows about the depth that and the talent that Kentucky has, that even when they're down 11, it's never over with this team because of the talent that they have. Now, the coach is under a little bit of scrutiny. I mean, I'm sure he's going to say he's going to have his reasons. All is well, all is fair and love in basketball because they came out with the W. Maybe he's just trying out rotations. It's early in the year. I don't know. But they hold on. They pull it out late. But, man, Davidson looked primed and ready for this upset for a large part of this game. Kentucky had to dig deep for this one, but it goes to show the kind of talent that they have. Those guys can rally together, and they did, and pulled out the victory.
Yeah, Davidson at times just looked like the faster team compared to Kentucky. They looked like they were getting into their sets a little bit better. They understood where each other was better than Kentucky did, and that's surprising considering Kentucky is on year 2 with a lot of these guys. I'm a little concerned about the rotation, specifically the decision on Glory Tate. Coach Pope in the post-game press conference said he was, quote, able to get Glory back on the floor, and if we hadn't had the stoppage, we would have been sure to get him there. That's great to say when you don't have to worry about it. There was a foul called on Bernard James that allowed them to get Glory Tate back in the game. They've got to iron that out, and they've got to figure out what's going on with that group, what the combination is going to be between Adonis Knight, Trey Trust, Cunningham, and Burks. That's got to be ironed out. I have my preference, but obviously Mark Pope has different ones. We'll see if that plays over. But there was times where, especially midway through the first half, Kentucky gets out to a big lead, and then it kind of seemed like they just assumed Davidson was going to roll over it and let him have it. And Davidson stormed back. Props to Kentucky for their rally back. What they did a really good job of was getting into the paint in the second half as they were rallying. They did a good job getting to their stars. And truthfully, they got bailed out by Davidson just not being able to hit free throws.
Yeah, and really, if we want to talk about a real area of concern, I was really more concerned leaving that game was Davidson guards' ability to break down and get past Kentucky guards as much as they did.
Yeah.
That's the concern. Bernard James had 23 points, but it was like there were moments when he had like 6-8 points, like he just shook the man 1-2 step and was by him. So I think the guard play or lack of guard play defensively side on Kentucky is more of an alarming thing, and it may tell more of a story to come back and bite them in the butt later on this season. That's the part that I'm really concerned about for Kentucky.
Yeah, and this game flipped when Kentucky started hitting threes. Trey Trust and Adonis Knight started getting rolling from 3. Cunningham and Burks, not good 3-point shooters. When they started doing that, this game flipped for Kentucky in the second half. Let's head to the second game where you were in attendance. Illinois on the road, number 22, fighting Illini, survive a 78-74 win. They really should have lost this one, but it was D'Angelo Jordan who won this game for him late. Hits a go-ahead jumper with less than a minute left to seal the win. Your thoughts being in the building?
The building, first of all, was electric. Beautiful building, beautiful court, beautiful group of people. Now,
The
I'm only
most
seeing
beautiful.
everything. I'm saying everything most beautiful because I got my shoes. So of course, I'm adding a little bit. I'm adding a little extra to it. But nevertheless, beautiful spot. This game was for Oregon to win. They laid it down at the end. I think there was a turning point for Oregon when they picked up what was a flagrant foul called for in their favor against Illinois. And Oregon, I think they kind of woke Oregon up and they kind of started rolling. They kind of took the lead. And at that point in time, it became a really, really, really competitive game, right? And then just down the stretch, just too much Illinois, too much D'Angelo Jordan. And Oregon had way too many turnovers. You can't beat a team like Illinois with as many turnovers as Oregon had that game. And that was unfortunate. Shout out to Paxton Corbin, who was a man-child last night. I mean, I keep calling Payson Corbin. He was a man-child last night. Did everything he could to keep his team in. Missed a shot late. But shout out to Oregon. They played good, but playing good doesn't mean anything if you don't get the dub, right? So they let this one go at home. Illinois sneaks by with a good win led by none other than D'Angelo Jordan getting it done.
Yeah, I think this established Oregon's going to be a player in the Pac-12. I think there's no debate about that. The question was who's going to be your top guy, and I think they've found a way to establish that with Payson Corbin, who was really good last night. My concern level for him, -7 in the minutes that he's on the floor. You can look and you could say, okay, we got sick production from him statistically. He was dominant, but it didn't equate. Now, plus minus can be, you can look at any one game and it can be different and it can be funky. I'm not saying this is the end-all be-all, but that was my one concern. Where I thought the most impressed I was late in this game when I think it was Kyrie Holtzclaw who had a turnover. I could be getting the number wrong. It was number 15. I can't remember don't have the roster memorized at this point. Outlet pass to them at the top of the three. Bobbles the ball. It turns into what I think was a Timothy Brown breakaway dunk. And I think it either tied it or it gave Oregon a 1-point lead. And at that point, that arena, I'm not even there, I'm just watching on TV, that arena is going insane. You've rallied back, you've taken the lead over a 22-ranked Illinois team. You are on the cusp of a victory. And what happens? D'Angelo Jordan calmly walks down the floor, hits a little midi right in front of the free throw line, gives Illinois the lead right back, and Illinois ends up winning the game because of that. I was so impressed in the poise that D'Angelo Jordan is showcasing as a freshman. We are obviously going to be talking about Cooper Flagg throughout his time because of everything that he's established, but D'Angelo Jordan is a reminder that it is not a guaranteed already end of conversation that Cooper Flagg is the best prospect in his class, because D'Angelo Jordan last night, add 4 steals, add 5 rebounds, does everything. All the concerns about the potential size issues D'Angelo Jordan was going to run into in college have not been a concern. He was absolutely electric last night.
Yeah, and Timothy Brown had a chance to tie the game up for Oregon last night at the end. He had a really good look at the ball. Timothy almost became Himothy, but not quite. Came up a little bit short. He's still Timothy.
There was 2, I think, right? They were down 2 late in the game. I think he had the wing 3 and the straightaway 3. Both of them looked to be, they were pretty wide open looks for Timothy Brown. Friend of the show, had him on before. All right, let's move on to the last game. The big upset. Number 4 Rutgers goes on the road to Mississippi State. They lose 81-77. Terrell Pearson hits the game-winning jumper with 12 seconds left in the game. That put the Mississippi State on top 79-77. Dylan Harper unable to close the game out, cannot hit a game-tying jumper on the other end, and Mississippi State with a stunner over Rutgers. Rick, is Rutgers just maybe too highly ranked to begin the season, or is this more of an example of Mississippi State maybe being under the radar?
First of all, shout out to the SIP. Shout out to the SIP, Mississippi State. I think this is an example of we've seen teams that we just talked about before, how they could have pulled an upset. They was close to pulling an upset, but they couldn't quite close the deal. You got Mississippi State, who was able to close the deal, largely because they was able to build a 12-point lead going into the half, right? They actually got outscored in the second half when the Rutgers kind of turned it on, but it was like just a little too late, especially with Pearson knocking it down at the end and closed it out. So we talk about the parity of these teams and how close these teams are, ranked or unranked. And we saw an example of that there. The game is about inches here, a play there. And Mississippi State did just enough, especially in the first half, to hold on and to just get. All you want to do is be close at the end. If you want these teams with a chance to win, Mississippi State stayed close, and god dang it, they got a chance to win, and they did.
Well,
Louses.
they held off what was just a Dylan Harper avalanche, 24 points in the second half. He went 10 of 11 in the second half. His only miss was the missed game-tying jumper after Pearson's jumper that gave them the lead by 2 with 12 seconds left. Dylan Harper was there. I'm not going to raise the panic flag on Rutgers. Obviously, it's one game, it's on the road, and it's a tough environment. But we have seen, and this is kind of consistent across the board, we're seeing a lot of these teams story of two different halves, right? Kentucky is a big one of that. This team is getting smoked in the first half, and they're outscoring teams by 17 in the second half. They are dominant in the second half. That's a credit to Mark. You can question Mark Pope's rotations. What we can't question is the halftime adjustments that his team's making. You could also, though.
Let's get it straight. Don't say we're questioning. You question Mark Pope's rotation.
Well, I'm not the only one questioning Mark Pope. I'm not the only one sitting here saying, "Hey, what are we doing with this rotation?" I'm saying it on a TV show, but I'm not the only one questioning this.
If I had a rotation for Kentucky, I would do it differently.
That's true, but I'm not the only one that's saying that. I mean, this is the discourse after this game. There's a reason that Mark Pope had to have, or in his press conference, was asked about the rotations. This is not just sitting here and I'm orchestrating all of it. I'm just one of the many asking this question about the rotation.
Pulling the strings. I think you're pulling the strings.
No strings. Trust me, I'm
no pulling
puppeteer.
The strings.
I am no puppeteer. The other question, though, you could ask on Mark Pope is what's going on in the first half? Why is this team getting beaten up in the first half against Wake Forest and Davidson? Why are you entering the half with double-digit deficits in your first 2 games? I can understand in the first one, but at home, your home opener, why are you facing a second or entering the half with a double-digit deficit now in 2 straight games?
One of those issues is they have lulls where they go away from Jamison Johnson, which is the dumbest thing in the world. They'll go 10 possessions in a row without number 17 touching the basketball. So if you want to, that's the bone I got to pick with Pope. Why number 17?
Sounds like you might be a puppeteer. You might be pulling the strings in.
I don't care who's in your lineup. If 17's on the court, that's who the bodies are run through. It flows like water, baby. Pope, get it together. My man trying to be number 1 pick. Get it together.
And the fact that they sat Glory Tate in the final minute and a half of this game when they needed buckets, and Glory Tate led the team in scoring and was dominant in the second half, plus 15 in the second half alone. Major question mark. Mark Pope's got to win. He's 2-0. I'm not saying this team isn't well positioned, but there's still question marks around Kentucky. That is our show. Reminder that the SimWorld U season, a special Friday matinee edition as number 10 Oklahoma hosts Auburn. Oklahoma's fresh off the loss to USC on the road in their opener. That's at 8:30 p.m. on CBS Sports. You'll catch it here, get all the notifications within Discord. One of 3 games going on Friday. Alabama kicks off their, I guess they were home earlier, but they faced Stanford in Tuscaloosa, trying to go 2-0, and then Texas A&M and Baylor go to battle in Waco, also at 8:30. Live updates will be coming from those 2 games, but live on your screen. Auburn and Oklahoma. All right, Rick, as always, been a pleasure. We will talk to you on Monday.
Oklahoma, you need that dub. Oklahoma, you don't want to go down 0-2. You need that dub.
Now that is insightful.
Shout out to Bevis and Patches and the guys. Bevis and Patches, Barkley James, who you got winning?